Mr. Shadrach. Mr. Shadrach. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for honoring our invitation and for coming. Now, without wasting time, I'd like to proceed to read the profile of our speaker today. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Profile of Mr. Shadrach. Mr. Shadrach likes to describe himself as a villager at heart. His last corporate role was with Deloitte. He spent a decade scaling businesses via his management consulting expertise. The segue that ushered him into the blockchain was when he led a team that scaled an SME from $500 to $2 million within 36 months. Now, following this breakthrough, they uncovered a treasure trove of Africa's broken and fragmented supply chains that needed repairing. Blockchain's unparalleled capabilities proved to be the perfect fit. Affectionately referred to as Africa's blockchain baron, Mr. Shadrach is a passionate AfCFTA advocate. His LinkedIn thought leadership enjoys 500,000 impressions monthly as he daily engages C-suite executives, listed company CEOs, tech experts, entrepreneurs, and so on. And he has led them to personal victories and showed them practical ways that the blockchain is shifting Africa's needle for employment. Let us welcome Mr. Shadrach. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. You are welcome.
Thank you kindly. Thank you for such a warm welcome. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I'm not sure if, yes, you can go ahead.
No, sorry, sir, you can go on.
Yes, I was saying, I'm not sure if my sharing is enabled as yet. Thank you, Maureen.
Okay, sir.
Yes, Shadrach, thank you. It's enabled. You're a co-host already, so you can share your screen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Deborah, if you could confirm with Maureen, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, very well. We can.
Yes, we can see your screen, sir.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you kindly. I will await your courtesy, Maureen. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I have been noting all your warm welcome, and they are much appreciated. And I'm going to just shuffle a few things on my screen to make sure that there is no, I don't get to see myself. Thank you kindly. Thank you so much. I see there's a raised hand on Maureen's side. I'm not sure if it's raised mistakenly.
Mr. Shadrach, you can go on. I guess that should be a mistake from someone, but I'll get that sorted out. It doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm sure some of those interns are mistakenly raising their hands.
That's fine.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Shadrach.
Right. Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. Firstly, I must appreciate the warm welcome extended to me. Let me mute the share. One moment. There we go. I'm uploading the right presentation. One moment. Please pardon me. Thank you. That's the right one. I will now segue into my correct presentation. Here we go. There we go. Look, without much further ado, as I said, much appreciated for the welcome and much appreciated for the hospitable host and the visionary approach to ensuring that the future is prepared for today and that emerging legal professionals, particularly within the female ecosystems, are prepared today, not just within the country per se, but within the broader AfCFTA priorities and the leverageable low-hanging fruits within blockchain. With that being said, I will be going through a very brief agenda. A bit of background on myself, as it has been touched on already. I remain a villager at heart. And of course, my last corporate role was within Deloitte, where I had certain activities that touched on the Pan-African broader landscape. And of course, currently as a global citizen and a Pan-Africanist, I channel 80% of my energies within the operations of Coronet blockchain. And you know what, before we touch on AfCFTA, let's pass by blockchain. What is it? What is it to an outsider who's not within the industry? You know what, I'll touch on only 3 aspects. First and foremost, it's a ledger. I'll touch on that in a moment. That ledger or that framework is decentralized, and that same ledger or the same framework is immutable. You know, some people, they prefer non-hackable, others prefer bulletproof safe, others prefer a lot more collaborative. Those are just the terms that are thrown around in the industry. But today I'm going to attempt to stay on the practical side and steer clear of the technical side. On the ledger side, you know, I mean, the banking industry, which is more than 200 years old, has been using a ledger. First, there was an evolution from a physical ledger to now Excel spreadsheets and also software as a service. So the banking sector and finance has always been ledger-centric. So ledgers really, ask any accounting students, any commerce students, they'll use a ledger as a departure point. So I won't delve too much into that. Why is this ledger different? And why should you care? This ledger is not only digitized, but it's also decentralized. I'm not sure how many of you in the room are here today, but you may recall, some of you, that the example I made back in 2020 November at the first edition is that if I, on my phone, had a certain ledger of some transactions that I had with Hilton Top Solicitors, then we would be privy and we would have access to that same ledger rather than the account records sitting with Madam Deborah Onye. They will now be decentralized or democratized access. That's just one main thing, especially when it comes to our use case in Coronet blockchain that we apply in our daily endeavors. It's mainly into supply chains, not so much into finance, but it will come up later. This word decentralized will come up later in my discourse. Immutable, you know, there is cybersecurity being the main. I'm just going to grab something. Cybersecurity is a growing industry around the world. Some traditional and some non-traditional targets are really being on the full brand of some cyber compromises, breaches. However, due to decentralization and how the blockchain is configured, not only in finance or crypto, not only in supply chains, which is my part of the trade, but also in cybersecurity, in big data, in AI, blockchain tends to twin with those other technologies to ensure just next level protection. But more on that on some other forum. Today, I'm going to just focus on supply chains. So what about the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement? I am assuming, given that today I'm engaging those from the legal profession, I think it's safe to assume that all of you have actually read what the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is about. And not just about, but you've actually gone into reading the agreement itself and the terms of trade, the terms of reference. If you haven't, I won't ask you to put up your hand, but I'm going to compel you. I'm going to beseech you and appeal to you to please, beyond this forum, go and read the agreement in full, because where I'm sitting within my space, I'm only going to touch on the 3 highlights, but the agreement has got numerous moving parts. Number one, the agreement seeks to, by 2030, 2035, seeks to alleviate out of poverty more than 30 million Africans. A very modest number by when you consider that by 2035, Africa's population would have doubled to more than 2 billion. So perhaps our elders are awaiting the young ones like yourself and myself to really edit that number, to maybe add a little zero or something along those lines. But nonetheless, that's the priority of the agreement at a high level. Number two, but not least, 450 billion US dollars is the amount of intra-Africa trade that the agreement seeks to add to what you can call our Pan-African trade grid, meaning more money needs to exchange hands than the current modest, maybe 13 or 15% type of trade that was a reality before the agreement was implemented last January this past January in 2021. And of course, border tariffs are sought to be eliminated more than 90%. Hence today's theme, lawyers without borders. You know, trade has to continue without borders. And that, for that to happen, it means our legal eagles also need to get involved without borders. There has been various movements, engineers without borders, Doctors Without Borders, even Lawyers Without Borders has been actually a movement. Modern is a theme today. However, us as a Pan-African constituency, we have been missing out on intertrade. We've been missing out on operating without borders, not just the physical borders and the, how do I call it, and the policies in place that were barriers to trade, but also perhaps we must not forget the cultural barriers that we have propped up in our own minds. Let me not forget a subject I'm also passionate about. The agreement seeks to lift up the made in Africa trade volumes, meaning drive manufacturing, drive export within the continental borders by more than 550 billion and beyond, of course, beyond our shores. The Made in Africa brand, good people, I need to appeal to you. It has gone through seasons of toxicity and seasons of cultural acidity. What does that mean? The Made in Africa brand is not among the most respected brands in the world. And that's where blockchain comes in a moment. And perhaps that's where you come in, because law without integrity, law without trust would not exist. Much similar to how blockchain exists in the trust economy. More on that later. So how does blockchain enable AfCFTA? I've touched on the poverty eradication. The informal economies in Africa are a problem when it comes to poverty eradication. Why is that? Are you aware, ladies, perhaps there's a gentleman out there, are you aware, ladies and gentlemen, that there is an inverted pyramid effect when it comes to Uganda and the economy of Norway? What does that mean? Uganda has got 96% of its economy operating in the informal sector. Informal means not compliant with many regulations. Informal could mean hand to mouth. Informal could mean not mainstream as yet to actually create quality jobs, to create sustainable incomes, sustainable livelihoods. So while informal trade it shows that Africa is alive with possibility, alive with trade, we are not here for the informal sector to stay. You are needed. You are needed within the legal fraternity to ensure the fast tracking of Africa evolving from the informal economy or the informal trappings towards the mainstream. We on the tech sector, we are already driving that narrative. We're already driving, utilizing the agreement, utilizing blockchain. We are adding trust where there were trust deficits within the informal economy. However, in Norway, only 4% of the economy is actually informal, or it's what's called the hidden economy. And that cannot be, because any economy in the world that actually punches beyond its weight, its trade is happening in the formal sector. The informal economy, Try go to a food market or a fresh or a wet market in Abuja or in Lagos or in Nairobi. Go to a market and tell that mom, say, Mama, you need a contract with your suppliers and I'm here to draft it for you. They will laugh you out of that store. Like, what are you talking about? My child, we do everything by the hand. I hide the money inside this area over here and I tie the other money and hide it under my pillow. That's not the Africa we want. We want an Africa where the mainstream of formal economy becomes the standard, because you cannot take care of your children by what you hide under your pillow or what you hide in the ceiling. That's not the Africa we want. We want an Africa that is transparent, that is where the transactions are traceable and where there are legacy businesses. You can't be selling tomatoes in Ghana, the red gold as they are referred to. You can't be selling tomatoes on the streets for 3 generations, for 4 generations. Just one mistake, that entire tomato business or livelihood will collapse. Businesses must be formalized, must be brought into banking platforms, or even the alternative, transaction mechanism. But there must be records, there must be legacy. And the Made in Africa brand, I've already touched on it, must be cleaned up. Made in Africa should not refer to inferior quality, should not refer to, I don't know, I don't have records of where these bananas come from. No, they taste good, but I can't tell you what went into making these bananas. I can't tell you how many hands actually touched these bananas. I can't tell you if any harmful pesticides were used in the production of these bananas or this cocoa or perhaps this semolina. No, we don't need that. We need the Made in Africa brand. For it to be trusted, it must first be transparent. And of course, that intra-Africa trade should see more businesses being aspirant to become big. And if you are saying your prayers as a lawyer, you might need to say your prayers not just to a judge, but you might need to say your prayers in your heart that more Africans will desire to go big, will desire to scale, because unless they scale, they're not going to be retaining any general counsel on their books. I'm just being honest with you. If they don't go big, they don't go mainstream, they'll feel like they don't need any legal professionals. You are going to be cornered. Do I fly to Canada? Do I go to Dubai? Do I relocate to the UK? We don't need that. The brain drain of our lawyers, our doctors, and other skills professionals will continue happening if we don't utilize blockchain to get Africa's game onto the road. We have spoken about it for what? Close to 2 decades now. We began implementing it last year in January. Now we must get this show on the road so that we do not keep talking about this transparent trade mechanism, but we actually make it happen. Let me get practical a little bit. Remember, dear audiences, I said my main trade focus in technology, in blockchain, in the Africa Continental Free Trade area or zone is to leverage blockchain to really practicalize the closing of supply chain gaps and any holes that may exist, because unless we close those gaps, then there's not going to be demand for involvement of the likes of you. How does that look like? I'm going to share 4 or maybe 5 scenarios, and then I'm going to circle back on what's in it for you. Where can you play a role? The first one, you see, if a smallholder farmer based in Uganda, based in Tanzania, based in Central Africa, if they are farming and their farming activities, their industrial activities are adding to the grid of Africa's exports to the world, our agri-sectors are very much alive. The world sees us as their bread basket. They may not be boasting about it, they may not be writing home about it, but we are exporting way too much food. We are also importing way too much food. That ticket, according to the Africa Development Bank, is currently approaching $60 billion US. Were you aware that Africa, despite having 60% of the global arable land, we are home to the most food insecure continent in the world? That is bizarre. So we need to, one, make sure that our food is not lost or wasted between the harvest point and the grocery shelves. We also need to make sure that we police our food supply chains so that we don't export food when we ourselves are food insecure. We also need to make sure that from food quality, food safety, we close up our supply chain so that, remember the Made in Africa brand? Made in Africa should not mean inferior quality. Made in Africa should not mean non-ethically sourced food items. Cote d'Ivoire, among other countries, still battles utilizing what might be seen as child labor in their supply chains, particularly at a farm level. The most notorious sector is the raw cocoa sector. That is one of the most notorious. But you and I would not know when we enjoy our chocolate, when we indulge. I mean, it was Valentine's Day 2 days ago. Maybe some of you ate quite a sizable amount of chocolate. Well done. But where did it come from? Or you think it came from Switzerland? I know for sure that 80% of all the world's raw cocoa comes from African soil. So guess what that means? 80% of all the chocolate comes from Africa. It might be processed in Switzerland. It might be processed in Germany and in the US. Those are the heavy hitters of chocolate processing, among others. But it comes from Africa. What about your coffee? Did you grab coffee in the last 7 days or maybe this morning to get you to work? Then East Africa coffee belt might have actually ended up on your doorstep, but you wouldn't know unless we actually deploy the full mechanisms of blockchain. And trust me, we are on it. We are working on it because we can't have non-sustainable, non-ethical trade byways keep on feeding the world on what's not sustainable. With that being said, what about soccer? I believe CAF, what do you call it? CAF. I'm trying to remember what CAF means. CAF, it's a confederation of African nations or cup. Do pardon me, I'm not that big into soccer, but our continent has got a very prestigious, what do you call it, Continental Cup, which is chaired by my neighbor here in Sandton, Johannesburg, Mr. Patrice Motsepe, quite notable on the billionaires row, right up there with Mr. Dangote. So with that being said, when the World Cup plays, how do we know where the soccer comes from? How do we know where that soccer ball comes from? Did some children in Pakistan, did they have their nails bleed so that the big boys can play? Maybe some of you are in humanitarian law, but whether you are in the humanitarian legal space or not, that is not the Africa we want, and that's not the world we want. I mean, on the light side of things, the recent World Cup, when it was won, my former neighbor from Soweto, Mr. Trevor Noah, who's now based in America, he asked the question, did France win the World Cup or did Africa win the World Cup? That one does not need blockchain. You just have to see the faces that were on that team, and it makes for a light-hearted dinner laugh, you know? But on a more serious note, where did the soccer ball come from that France was playing, or all the soccer balls in that World Cup? For as long as we do not know, then you and I have failed those boys in Pakistan, have failed those boys in China. And lo and behold, maybe Africa has already entered the ball-making game, but it is done under the table. We don't want those blind spots in our trade corridors. So we have to deploy the truth machine, the trust machine, and the traceability qualities of decentralizing the ledger digitally. Everybody must see the same thing, from the ball manufacturer to the processor to the distributor and to the branding company or Nike in this case. Nike, Reebok, all these players, they need to account visibly, not to the regulators anymore, but to the members of the public, because that's a democratized trade that we need. I did promise I'm going to get practical. This is what I shared about maybe last year, and I touched on remittances. Some of you, I mean, most of you are students. Some of you could have graduated already. At some point or the other, you might have had your family remit money to you. Whether they remitted it via Bitcoin or via the traditional banking frameworks or via Western Union or via the other channels, you may have been on the receiving end of a remittance, or maybe some of you are working already. You have sent a remittance to someone far away. I know that Madam Deborah, sometimes she actually takes the train across the state lines in Nigeria to actually, to go and visit her dearly beloved family that she loves. So between Lagos and her family, that is a remittance corridor, whether you're remitting within the country or you are remitting in the diaspora. But the question becomes, if 12 slices of bread are being sent in an analogy format, why only 12 slices arrive if 20 are sent? What does that mean? Remember I told you about cybersecurity before? There has been some justifications. Not this particular brand. I'm not talking about the brand. I'm talking about the theme itself, cybersecurity. There's been this justification in global trade of, oh no, the cost of remitting money is so high. There has to be so many, the middlemen particularly, or the brokers. There has to be so many layers of security. It is so complex. We were improving our technology, blah, 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 and all that nonsense. But the Sustainable Development Goals, as set out by the UN, United Nations, is that remittances need to come down from as high as 25% to an average of actually, 8% in some countries. But the SDGs are not, SDG 2030 are not satisfied. Remittances need to come down to 3% or below. And guess what? There is no other mechanism out there. All the bankers, they will actually step forward to affirm what I'm telling you. The banking framework as it is cannot bring the cost of remitting much lower than they have already, because there are just so many layers of legacy systems in place, so many layers, so many policies, so many internal mechanisms, so many excuses as well. So blockchain in this regard has been known to be a superior and more transparent remittance mechanisms. Countries, startups in Nigeria, such as Patricia, which is run by my good friend, Mr. Hanu Fijero, is actually among those that are already implementing remittance alternatives away from the banking, traditional banking platform. So we cannot continue explaining away the evil or wickedness of actually burdening our people. Did you know, as I skip this slide, did you know that foreign aid to Africa is less than remittances that are sent by Africans in the diaspora? I'm not sure what the number is of those Africans. There could be 400 million. It's in the vicinity. Africans in the diaspora, those that are sending home, but never underestimate that the other remittance is the remittance from the major city hubs to the rural areas or to the countryside. That's often not counted. But the moral of the story on this one is that blockchain as a see-through in the money supply chain is an overdue use case at a major level, and that's where we really need to level the playing field. Last but not least, one of our current use cases as Corona blockchain is in the hair extensions industry. Maybe a number of you could be adorning the crown of hair extensions. Good for you. Where we get involved is where they sourced ethically. Were there any human rights violations in the process? Was there anyone coerced? Or maybe nobody was coerced. But in the sourcing of those hair extensions, were there any harmful carcinogens or any cancer-causing, chemicals that could have seeped into those hair extensions? We want to forbid that. Sometimes we say God forbid, but there are things that we can forbid ourselves before God gets involved, right? Because he has to do what we cannot do. He has to intervene at a level where we are falling short. So if there's something you and I can do, we have to deploy the see-through supply chain effects of blockchain so that at scale, human rights can be protected at scale. Livelihoods can be protected as well, and at scale there can be transparencies. And also, some of you may be practicing tax law, so that the government is not going to see tax evasion at scale, or tax avoidance rather. So for that to happen, the supply chains are the curtain is being peeled away, so that there is transparent trade, because the Africa we want is a transparent Africa. So what's in it for you, or what should you be? I'm hoping that most of you have got pen and paper. What should be your takeaways? Well, here is, do pardon the typo there, no borders. There's just an additional A there. Here is the first thing for you to take. I would say pre-COVID and pre-AfCFTA implementation, or the free trade zone. Maybe you are in Nigeria, maybe you are in Ghana, maybe you are in Kenya, or maybe you're actually in one of the other countries. You were, as a lawyer, competing with other lawyers in your locality. I've got good news, I've got bad news. Now that AfCFTA is being implemented at various stages of adoption, and now that we are living in a digital first world, it's digital first, and now that it's the world without borders, here's what I can tell you. The world without borders, or rather law without borders, let me just mute this. Law without borders also mean that you're competing with your neighbors, meaning as you acquire those grades, for those of you that are still actually studying, you should not look what the Nigerian benchmarks are or what the Ghanaian benchmarks are. You should seek out as to, wait a minute, what are the Pan-African standards? What are the international standards? Because beyond your schooling, beyond your varsity, beyond your articles, that's the real level at which you are forced to compete. You are competing with other Africans in Africa. The competition pool for work, for opportunities, for revenue, for income, and for involvement in the legal profession is no longer a Nigerian ball game or a Ghanaian ball game, or whichever country where you are. I'm saying that there's a saying that I used to be told by my teachers, which was a bit painful in my schooling days. They used to say, Shadrach, pull up your socks. The awkward part is I was not wearing any socks. I could not afford any socks. Remember, I'm a villager at heart, so I was a poor villager. So, but maybe some of you might have that, you might afford to actually pull up your socks. I say, locate your socks, pull them up, and ensure that you are among the best of breed in your trade. Lowering our continental borders was very good for trade, is very good for trade, but it's also very bad for mediocrity. It's terrible for mediocrity. If your work is subpar, then you're not going to survive in the deep ocean of the legal fraternity as the continent becomes more united. So you still have time, locate your socks and up your game. The next one is digital first. I'm not sure how many of you, like Madam Deborah, are actually digitally literate, meaning you've got a presence in the digital space, your social media. I'm not sure about your Instagram. I'm not sure about Facebook, and I'm not dissing those platforms. But when you're on a platform, ask yourself whether that's a business to consumer platform and whether that's a business to business platform, business to government. Guess who ticks all those boxes in the social media space? I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn and other similar platforms. I mean, there's Fiverr out there. Fiverr, and there's other professional ecosystems. Just when you come into a digital platform, ask yourself, for all your effort, are you actually talking into an echo chamber whereby there's going to be radio silence on the other side? Let me be practical about digital first. What if you are always trending on Instagram? I'm talking to some of you. What if you're always trending on Instagram? What if you have got 50,000 connections or followers or fans? I don't know what they call them these days. I'm not on the other side, but the company is. What if of those 50,000 fans, friends, or followers, What if only 2 of them can afford your services? It depends. Which field of law are you in? Are you in the humanitarian law? What are the chances that those people that you are building with every day would ever knock on your door? Knock, knock, I've got an opportunity for you. So always be intentional. I'm not saying people must move to LinkedIn. I'm not getting paid by LinkedIn to actually advocate for the B2B platform. That's what LinkedIn is. Business, to government, and then to consumer. Consumer comes last, but businesses are a priority on LinkedIn. So I don't know whether you are human rights in a human rights space, remittances, or some other, or maybe commercial law, or maybe criminal law. You need to ponder carefully. What does it mean for you to be digitally savvy and digital ready? And as linked to the first point, are you only acquainted? I've asked at the beginning, how many of you have actually read the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement thoroughly? I mean, as early as the 40s and 50s, the likes of the late Kwame Nkrumah were advocating for a united Africa. Some of you here might have been born in the 90s, 80s, or maybe the early 2000s. I'm not sure. But all I'm saying is the vision of the United Africa has to end up on your doorstep. The vision of a transparent Africa has to have something to do with you, because going digital also means reading more about blockchain beyond this discussion. Because if there's room for you to be involved in the design thinking, the co-creation, because remember, there is this functionality in blockchain called smart contracts, meaning smart contracts, put simply, if I agreed with Hilton Top, if I agreed with Madam Deborah that, listen, if I send these 2 pens to your office, you need to ensure that the proceed, 5% of the proceed from this transaction goes into this, Lawyers Without Borders eventing. In the traditional world, she will have to manually or else request her accounting team to manually action on that. Smart contract means I'm on the blockchain, she's on the blockchain, and all of you are on the blockchain. The minute these pens reach her desk and she picks them up and she's satisfied with the quality of the item, the minute she clicks there, you know what? Order fulfilled. Then smart contracts, as written by the legal professionals, coded by programmers into the blockchain framework, they automate the honoring of payment across that entire transaction chain. That is just, in a nutshell, smart contract. One moment. Thank you kindly. I'm going to pause. It's not nice to talk alone, even though it's a pleasure, it's a privilege, but I rather we have an interactive dialogue. On that note, good people, blockchain is coming to a cinema near you. Disruption is coming to a cinema near you. Change is already setting up in a cinema near you. The question is whether you are ready. Will change happen to you, or are you part of those that are making change happen, either through the free trade capabilities or through blockchain in your neighborhood? I leave you with that question. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shadrach, for this wonderful presentation. We'll be launching the poll in a few moments, so we'll need 1 minute of your time to fill it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is that okay by you?
Yes. No, I'm going to stay behind for questions. I will stay more than a minute. I've already budgeted to stay back for questions. So yes, Madam Speaker, I'm on standby. I'm at your service.
Thank you, sir. It's Sijibomi Oni.
Thank you. Thank you so much. May you kindly type that in the comment. I want to pronounce it correctly. Please type your name.
I will, sir. I will, sir.
Thank you kindly.
fill this form, all the interns. One minute, let's hurry up, let's hurry up. Amend it now. 1, 2, 3. I'm sharing the result now. This shows we won the speakers back. Well done, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Shadrach.
Thank you kindly. Thank you so much. Just to clarify, do we have any Q&A or? Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for this eye-opening session. We have a few questions in the Q&A section. The first question is from Kuye. She said, how can we effectively promote blockchain in Africa?
Just to get a name, you said it's Kuye.
Yes, Kuye Morenike.
Thank you. That's a good question. I'm going to answer it in a moment. To respond to it, there are a few ways. There are a few ways that we can, in our respective ways, promote blockchain on the continent. But I'm going to categorize it. I'm going to categorize it. We need more blockchain entrepreneurs to not just be promoting blockchain by talk, but by doing, by implementing blockchain use cases in property, in food, in supply chains, in various use cases. We need more and more, because remember, we are stronger together. So we need to lift as we rise. It's not on my desk, neither is it on yours. That's number one. The entrepreneurial and the technical inputs will by themselves improve the visibility of blockchain, where people see what it does, not hearing what it is, but what it does. That's number one. Number two, number 2 or 3, what about other professions, such as the accounting profession, the legal profession, taking more awareness, not only of what blockchain is, but of the conveniences that blockchain is bringing to their profession, to their trade, and to their fraternity. So that involvement by itself, more than any promotion, more than a promotion in a sense of perhaps an awareness or education, I'm grateful for that. But the best education is where, even in the most distant rural places, maybe in Nigeria, maybe there's some people there that are making shoes, and then when they make those shoes, they have to lie and say it's made in Italy, because the market thinks if the shoes are made in Nigeria, they are cheap or they're of poor quality. That is bad. And for blockchain to get involved to show you that, listen, there are more quality procedures that went into making these shoes, sometimes even better qualities than Italian processes. So by having visibility of blockchain in our trade environments and in our respective professions, or even food scientists, food auditors, quality assurance, now incorporating the convenient use of blockchain, not because we want blockchain to be favored, but because blockchain is a solution looking for our problems. I hope that I've answered that sufficiently. Thank you kindly.
Yes, you have, sir. For the next question from Abraham F.I., can we gain access to your slides, sir?
Most certainly, beyond this call, I'm going to share them with Madam Deborah, and who will gladly distribute them across all of you, gladly. So you can count that as a yes, Ibrahim.
Okay, sir, the next question is from Oluwa Bushayo. She says, please, it's actually about the smart contract, that you made a scenario about a smart contract and she didn't get it because her network was interrupted, and she would like you to repeat the scenario.
Thank you kindly. I'm going to demonstrate it in a moment. Let me grab an item and I'll demonstrate smart contract. One moment. May I take a moment?
Yes, you can, sir.
Thank you. I'll be back briefly.
I can see someone raising her hand. Please kindly type your question in the Q&A section.
Thank you kindly. Thank you. So I'm back with my props to elaborate the smart contract question. Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
So I've got sugar in here. There are certain processes that are utilized, dodgy processes that are utilized in the sugar industry, which involve the use of bones, animal bones. They are used, and they are used, they are charcoal, they are burnt, and their charcoal and other byproducts are used well, they call it purifying sugar, or giving it that white. You see, this one is brown. So why am I bringing that up in smart contract? I will in a moment. I've got my vanilla custard here, from cattle to milk to processing stages to the gelatin and all the other processes that give us vanilla. When blockchain is involved, I'll show you in a moment how smart contracts are executed. My most favorite one is this one over here. This is coffee. That's my coffee there. So in this coffee, how do I know whether it comes from Rwanda or it comes from Ethiopia or maybe Kenya or Tanzania or maybe Colombia? Who knows? Let me give you a scenario. Say one of you have got a client that is based in Nigeria. Maybe this is a conglomerate, you know, with presence, a multinational with presence all over. They are importing coffee from Kenya. Once this coffee, or rather the what do you call it, the coffee beans leave Kenya and make their way to Nigeria, where the processing plant is there. All those mechanisms, there must be transit companies that must be paid. There must be, what do you call it, border custom duties that must be paid. There must be processing and manufacturing entities or third-party logistics and third-party processing and OEMs in manufacturing. All those, this is how smart contracts work. If all these parties across the public and the private sector are tied in a loop via a smart contract, which was written by lawyers, coded by programmers into the e-commerce trade environment, if that has been put in place, then it means those coffee farmers in Ethiopia, they don't have to wonder when did the coffee actually arrive in Nigeria. They will get a banking notification. They will get whatever transaction platform they're on. It will notify them that, listen, your coffee beans have gone through all the stages that were required. Maybe they get paid when the coffee beans get on a ship, or when they get on trucks. Maybe they get paid when the coffee beans have arrived. It depends on what the terms of trade are. But smart contracts, all that you need to know what they are right now from a trade perspective is that it's automated payment when a collaborative set of terms are adhered to across the value chain. No longer do you have to manually, we need to follow up with Madam Deborah, we need to check that the coffee consignment passed the what do you call it, the import a stringent requirement, it passed the industry regulatory requirement. No, there's no need to wait. If the criteria has been fulfilled, then the payment is automated across the value chain. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, sir. For the next question, it's similar to the very first question. How do we as law students help improve the awareness of blockchain within the legal space and university community?
That's a good question. Firstly, maybe I'll invert that question a little bit. How can you, as a law student or as an emerging lawyer, how can you benefit from blockchain? Well, by benefiting from blockchain, you will have no problem speaking about blockchain at a party, at a wedding. Some of you maybe are attending weddings this coming weekend. I don't want you to speak theoretically at a wedding and say, I think blockchain is nice. No. We need to see something along the lines of, do you know that I'm doing an internship at this blockchain company and they flew me out to Dubai? I was at one of the busiest ports. They flew me out to Guangzhou. Oh, maybe they're not in the supply chain. They are involved in ABC. Maybe they're involved in lowering remittances. Did you know that my family, I use the app. I went on the app myself and I used Patricia. And even though I'm an intern at Patricia, I used Patricia to send money home. And it was a lot better. I was able to convert airtime to this and airtime voucher to money and all those. You're not talking about theory. A lot in trade is not about theory. Maybe theory is needed for you to lay the foundation to be ready for the legal profession, to acquaint yourself with Roman or other legacy, concrete fundamentals. But with that being said, you need to get involved. Do not become a blockchain advocate where you go to a party and go like, I like blockchain. It sounds nice. No. Get involved. Apply for internships in blockchain. Read up on what companies are doing in blockchain. Read up on the e-Naira. Is it good? Is it bad? Form your own opinion. Have you enlisted within the central bank digital currency environment? Are you aware of what the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing? Can you get involved in there when they need extra pair of hands? In a nutshell, the best advocacy, the best ambassadorship, the best awareness of promotion You know, they used to say this in the multi-level marketing. I don't like multi-level marketing. Just put it out there. No hard feelings. If any of you are doing multi-level marketing as a side hustle, we are still friends. I don't hate it. But in multi-level marketing, there's a saying that changed how I see the world. It's a saying called, before you recommend the product, you must eat the product. I go like, these people, it's like they are, what do you call it? It's like they're shouting this as a mantra. Eat the product before you recommend the product. I think they were onto something. It's a lot easier to go like, I'm using blockchain. I send my mom money. I saved $200 or I saved 10,000 Naira. Now that's a story worth writing home about. Not, I think theoretically blockchain could, no. Africa doesn't need theory. So get out there, get involved, then promote. Profit, then promote. I hope that's clear.
Yes, that's very clear, sir. Thank you very much. The next question is from Temi Tope. She said, is the non-fungible token fungible? I think that's what she meant. Related to blockchain?
Oh, yes. That's a good question. Non-fungible tokens. Now we're talking token economy. That's taking us to the exciting part of blockchain. You see that artwork there on my wall? If I was to take that artwork and enter it on a ledger, manual. Let me do this. To touch on the non-fungible. I'm gonna write it. I like to be practical. Good. I'm gonna tear this slip here. So if you are the bearer of this slip here, Shadrach's artwork #552, then it means that you could redeem that artwork. So what if I leave this with my attorney? What if I leave this with Madam Deborah and I go like, Madam Deborah, this is, what do you call it? One of those bonds. If someone presents this, you need to consider this a non-fungible, meaning a representation of value, not value, representation of value. So if they show up at your doorstep, you are my attorney. You're my attorney there in Nigeria. You need to make this to be redeemable. They give you this, they go home with that. So that's a broader non-technical side of non-fungible tokens. Obviously, it's not manual like this. Everything is digital, whether it's artwork, whether it's asset, whether it is, but it's a representation of value. That's just a summary. I wouldn't want to get on the technical side where I'll just put on the other technical blockchain head and I just go crazy, I go takey. That we can park for now. I'm hoping that added value to someone out there.
Definitely, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question is from Ogoluwa Osilesi. How can the use of smart contracts be promoted so as to foster development and ease in the legal profession and in the African economy?
Very, very, very good question. I'm saying that it is high time that when smart contracts are being configured, our lawyers on the continent, they are present. No longer do we want to see blockchain solutions that are built by offshore developers and offshore lawyers who are guesstimating what the African realities are. Even though they may be legally accurate because of their knowledge reciprocity, they might be inaccurate when it comes to implementing such contracts or such smart contracts in the normal day-to-day. That speaks to African nuances or realities. What am I saying? Before we speak smart contract, let me circle back to something else. You know how lawyers and doctors these days, they go like, don't confuse Google for my certificates on the wall. I am the real deal. You need to not mistake me. Don't think can Google a legal contract and build yourself up a contract. But when you get in trouble, now you come to me. That's a problem. You know what I'm thinking? If lawyers forbid the market from DIY or do-it-yourself contracts, then lawyers need to also take a stand in the trade corridors and make sure that when smart contracts are built, it's not just developers and coders thinking, you know, I think this could stand in court. Because remember, smart contract, just like any contract, can be legally contested. And the arbitration happens digitally as well. Excuse me, meaning if this chili over here leaves one location, it is farmed and it reaches maybe a scalable, maybe it's on a ship, and then this shipment is contested. There must be arbitrators. There must be, what do you call it, conciliation that is convened. So in that regard, the legal profession must not stand on the sidelines while either normal contracts or smart contracts are being configured. Get involved. That's the best promotion that is going to give to the free trade zone.
Thank you very much, sir. The next question is from Eddie Fitz. She said, how can I partake in trade to trade and government business?
Good question, good question. Firstly, how well versed are you on the dynamics of trade? And how well versed are you on the complications or barriers or challenges that actually emerge during the trade processes? Become well versed, become well acquainted, become a niche focused specialist in the particular area of trade. Maybe it's fintech. Maybe some of you are aware that, let me remember the name. How do I forget? One of the Nigerian fintech startups has gone from $1 billion US valuation to more than 2 billion or 2.5 billion. I'm going to remember which, I'm actually doing business with them. So it's a bit embarrassing because I'm in business with this particular startup. I'm going to remember it. It's going to come to mind in a moment. So when fintech is rising, last year, $5 billion US worth of funding for startups came into Africa. Are you aware? Are you involved? Are you involved in the type of challenges that startups are facing or that government is facing, whether in blockchain or beyond? There are always elephants headbutting in business. Sometimes the crypto sector in Nigeria goes like, oh no, the government never loves us, or this or that. So are you acquainted? You can only get involved and benefit if you actually obsess about the nitty-gritties or the pain points. Where there are pain points, then there's profit to be made. So please get involved where government to business are intersecting, where business to business are shaking hands, because that's the real trade. The free trade agreement is just a piece of policy on my shelf, but the real trade is happening out there while the policy is catching up with that trade.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. The next question, an anonymous attendee needs to know if the blockchain is just a technology for cryptocurrencies or if you can use it for any business.
Very, very good question. Dear Anonymous, Bitcoin about 11 years ago, Bitcoin was the first use case or was the first solution to be applied to blockchain at scale. Before then, I mean, blockchain existed as early as the early 1990s, but it was not used at scale. It was not used at a scale that is significant. Bitcoin was the first use case. Let me now distill it to a village level. I did mention I'm a villager at heart, and my host did echo that. So I'm gonna use a village example. If I own 2 horses and all that I use is get those horses, or even donkeys, I prefer donkeys. If I use those donkeys with my wagon to always deliver water, they even call me the waterman. Hey, that waterman. One day, Madam Deborah or Madam Chioma asked me, sir, please, we always fetch wood with our hands, but today we are writing exams. Can you add wood to your wagon? And somebody else says, oh, please, sir, by all means, can you also add vegetables to your wagon? Because we know you always use your donkeys to move water around the village. We need you to please add wood, add vegetables, and while you are at it, please take these 2 kids and drop them off at school. It might sound like a very basic, laid-back example, but here is where it comes into effect. Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency was the first to use blockchain. Now we've had other cryptocurrencies enter the fold beyond blockchain. Ethereum, Ripple, and others. They have now entered, the fold. Some of you may not be aware, but the owner of Binance, the trade platform or the exchange platform, is actually the richest man in Asia right now. I think he counts to his deep pocket above $94 billion US as of last week. I mean, he's overseeing a platform. Keep that in mind, that industries that did not exist are actually shooting up ever since then. Beyond Bitcoin, we've got supply chains. That's the trade I'm in, where blockchain is making supply chains transparent. We've got a whole lot of other use cases in property, in deeds registry, I think even in, education records. If you try to verify, and Madam Deborah will affirm this one, if you try to verify your qualifications within Nigeria or even other countries, it can be a nightmare. What about if you try to follow up with a criminal case or a civil suit? How is the records on the current ledger?
Yeah.
Or the current records? It can be a nightmare. And when that happens, justice is aborted or justice suffers in the process. So blockchain is being deployed in records keeping, deployed in education. In the US, by the way, 50% of all the PhDs that I knew in the US as of the last 5 years are all fake. They are all counterfeits. But how do you verify that without blockchain? Because there's too many silos, too many records. So to answer Anonymous, blockchain's first use case of carrying water was just Bitcoin. But Bitcoin has gone big. Now Bitcoin is joined by other crypto tokens and items. It has gone beyond that. It's in supply chains. It's cleaning up the act in supply chains. It's cleaning up the act in records keeping. It's cleaning up the act even within education and beyond. There's so many more, but I would like to leave room for the next question. Thank you kindly.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Shadrach. Just to chip in and then to buttress what you just said, Shadrach, a typical case of some years back, I took up some pro bono cases from the maximum prison in Lagos here, at the Kirikiri prison. And then in the midst of, trying to locate the files of these particular inmates, I got to the court record, the registry, and then we discovered that the page that had probably their suit number was torn out of the file. And I mean, among these sets of people that fell into the names that I took up for the pro bono, about 5 cases at the time, among them were those who were already had been in the prison for like 10 years, 5 years. They were only brought out during the point of their arraignment. And I took, I took that pity and then out of the large heart that, okay, there should be a need for justice to play cause. And here we are being hindered as a result of the lack of good record keeping. I mean, these were some of the things that informed my mind when I got into the space of the blockchain that, like you said, get to study it, get to know about it and see where you can place yourself in the ecosystem of the blockchain and not just like, oh, I think this blockchain should be fine. So I saw practical use cases in that area and I saw the need, the importance for it. Yes, I'm not like you in the practical aspects because you are really practicalizing on it, you're an expert on it and the rest of it, but to buttress it, yes, it is really happening. I mean, at the big file and a large number of paper, how can you deliver justice to those that they can't find the files? And at the end of the day, of course, I had to leave those cases because it was serving as another hindrance for proceeding with the other ones that were at hand at the point. So if we could have a proper record keeping. Of course, justice will be delivered to the indigent mostly, to those who are suffering and being kept. Now, if you can't find a record, how do you proceed? How do you call the attention of the magistrate or the judge to this matter? And then another one is in terms of the land registry, handled a matter for a client. At some point, we discovered a title document was in the hand of this particular Alaji who had no connection. There was a break in the chain of title. So at the point the client got involved with this particular person, I wasn't involved. At the point of the payment, you know, that's what they do mostly around this part of the country. They don't get the lawyer involved when they are trying to finalize. They call you, please help me do the agreement. And I told her I won't do an agreement to the a transaction that I was not, you know, ab initio involved to get to do some of the research so I can cross my T's and dot my I's concerning the necessary things I need to impute in the document. And when I got into trying to research about how the title came about, we discovered that it was a bad title and probably something happened along the line when the man probably worked at the land registry at some point and laid hold on this particular document, which was backdated to like 1970 something. And yet the document he has nothing to connect him to it. And that was how my client was saved from this, from the transaction that would have caused her to run into a lot of loss. That's just to buttress what you've said. Thank you. We're really enjoying. Choma, you can go on with the questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma, for that input. Thank you, sir, for answering that question. The next question we have is from...
Just a quick moment before you proceed, Chioma. Madam Deborah mentioned a document that was backdated to the 70s, even though the holder of that document or the title deed could not be traced via other references as to how they are linked to that document. Earlier on in my delivery, I touched on immutability of blockchain, meaning once records are part of the blockchain ledger, they are protected from illegal editing or illegal tampering. So that is where immutable comes in. If you touch that document, it's decentralized, remember? Meaning we will all know. If you reach for it, even if you work in the registry office, if you reach that document and you edit it digitally, that is, it will circulate its edit across everybody. It will be asking everybody, do you vet or do you approve this edit? Now, if members of the community in that ledger, in that node are saying, we don't know anything about this, then the edit or the attempt to tamper will be illegitimized and therefore will not come into effect, including the attempt to backdate. You can't backdate. How about expiry date? You know, here's an expiry date here. There's an expiry date over here. What if the retailer goes like, oh, I didn't sell enough vanilla custard. Let me rub this out and write something else there, even with the machine. How do we know that? So our health is in a potential crisis because of the editing or the backdating or the forward dating. I just wanted to come in there to affirm immutability and decentralization. Thank you kindly. You can continue, Chioma.
Okay, sir. I think what you said basically answered the next question, because Olayemi asked, since the blockchain is permanent and it cannot be manipulated, if there's an error, what can be done? I think what you just said answered that question.
That's brilliant.
That's the, yes. So we'll move to the next question. From Yakubu Elizabeth, she said, what are the necessary skills needed for an undergraduate if she eventually wants to be a blockchain entrepreneur in future?
Brilliant, brilliant. So blockchain entrepreneurship is approached from two domains. Maybe you can make it three. It's approached from two domains or three domains. One, you are an entrepreneur who wants to go into blockchain to solve specific pain points in society where there is demand supply. And by solving those problems, you will profit. That's the business founder. There's a business founder, and then there's a technical founder. A technical founder means somebody who's quite acquainted with coding. They are a coding expert. in more ways than one. And they go like, listen, I don't think I want to code for artificial intelligence or code in the metaverse or code in machine learning. I want to become an expert in coding blockchain solutions that can be adopted by specific trade corridors or trade ecosystem. So that's a second. There's a business founder, then there's a technical founder. But I think in blockchain, unlike the other emerging technologies, in blockchain, we can have a third founder. The third founder is known as the legal founder. What if you have experience in informing the configuration of smart contracts? You are on the advisory ecosystem or the advisory team that informs the legal soundness of that smart contract. Meaning, maybe that smart contract is saying once this coconut oil is delivered, then those that tendered its delivery must only be paid after 180 days. What if such a term of trade is actually at loggerheads with local laws in your region? Then you are able to put your hand up and advise the team and say, listen, we are going to have a challenge if those whose cash flow is now being challenged, now they go and claim, and now they go and impose certain penalties on this entire transaction. Then we need to not code this smart contract in that direction. What if you've been informing or advising smart contracts, also adjudicating and being an arbitrator to implementing any conflict or resolution in smart contract? What if you've got that type of experience? Or maybe you're an intern in a business unit that specializes in smart contract. If that's the case, you may one day go like, you know what? I want to become a legal founder. I want to become a lawyer who's starting my own company. I don't know what it will do. Maybe that startup will simplify smart contracts. Maybe it will simplify sourcing of knowledge repositories that is able to enable, the configuration or execution of smart contracts. I'm not sure what startup you'll start, but you can be a business founder, you can be a technical founder or from the programming fraternity, or you can be from a legal fraternity. That will depend on what the nail looks like if you are bringing the hammer to the nail.
Thank you very much, sir. The next question we have is from Isaiah Glory. She said tariffs and non-tariff barriers, are used by many African governments to develop and defend their indigenous industries against competition from other African countries. This is in direct opposition to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement stated the AfCFTA's stated goal of promoting businesses by fostering a more integrated and competitive African market. She's asking, how can this be resolved? And secondly, how does blockchain resolve this conflict? The conflict between tariffs and then the African Continental Free Trade Agreement's goals and objectives.
Thank you kindly. That's a good question. On the one hand, existing trade mechanisms that were used by countries, some of them as a shortcut, others as a comfort zone, and others as a conflict zone to basically punish certain industries that are either trying to import or export. I mean, you know, that question is so loaded because on the one hand, it doesn't touch on government alone. Remember, government on its own does not utilize tariff barriers at the border. It's not just government. It's the trade monopolies that insist and instruct government to place barriers at our border posts so that their livelihoods and their industries, which they invested so highly in, can be protected. So we need to acknowledge the role players here. It's both the existing established monopolies and the government role players or constituencies. Why did they do that? They did that to protect a few players in the country. Maybe they don't want you to go into the sugar industry. I know right now in Nigeria, there is a highly intense contest between two industrialists that shall remain unknown, but most of you know them. that are fighting for the sugar and flour pie of the industry. You see, those kind of tensions, then some people, they go to the government. One of those new players that is going face off with Mr. Dangote said, you know what, the very government that actually put together a policy that is pro-industrialization and pro-allowing other players to come into the sugar sector, whether they are scaling their manufacturing or bringing from outside the country, what do you call it, certain semi-raw products. Why is the government permitting it here, but actually conflicting with it when another player comes in? So whether we're talking tariff codes or we're talking, what do you call it, protective industry mechanisms so that people can get the return on investment across a certain period, or we are talking about a government that is asleep on the job, irregardless, the free trade agreement arrived into a very diverse Africa. Africa has got more than 54 trade zones. There's a lot more to that. Each region, even Nigeria itself, is segmented. The agreement, that's why it's not being implemented right away. It's being implemented in stages, because the other weakness of the agreement is that the way it was positioned at first, it could appear to favor mega economies at the expense of the miniature economies or the smaller economies on the continent. So that is something that we are aware of within the free trade zone constituencies, and that is something that we are working daily to really begin to remove those bricks one by one. We are not there yet, but reforms are taking place. What about the blockchain side? You know, blockchain solves quite a number of issues at the border level. One of the visions that we have within Coronet Blockchain in our Vision 2030 is not only to deploy blockchain in beauty supply chains for beauty products, for hair, but that's just our first milestone, but to evolve into food, to evolve into fashion. And as we do that, we are aware that some of our border procedures are really inundated with inefficiencies. So blockchain, in this regard, we are in talks to ensure that we turn our borders into drive-throughs. Why? If I'm a truck company owner, and I've got 200 trucks, and they travel the same routes, they transport the same commodities or consignment, why should they get interrogated each time they show up at the border? Please come out of the truck. So is this your truck? Oh, it's for your boss. Okay, let me see that permit again. Why are we doing that? Why don't we deploy artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain so that through a number plate reader systems and mechanisms and a repository of data that cannot be tampered with begins to recognize incoming flow of traffic, so that we lessen the number of items that have to be adhered to at the checkpoint, because all our borders across the continent, including South Africa and Zimbabwe, South Africa and Mozambique, South Africa and Botswana and Namibia, and South Africa and Lesotho, or Nigeria and Ghana, all these countries, they are going through border inefficiencies at various degrees. So blockchain as a record-keeping ledger that cannot be hacked or tampered with, it means we are all on the same page. If your truck is still roadworthy, I will know on this ledger. If your truck is licensed to you, I will know here. If your consignment is leaving maybe DRC Congo, heading to Lagos, and it's a truck, then it will already appear on the same ledger if I'm the government that I'm part of. You are not going to appear and I'm surprised. Oh, this truck, I wonder where it comes from. I wonder who's driving. No, we should know each other. So lowering our trade barriers means eradicating the trade silos and also thinning the lines between the private sector and the public sector. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, sir. That answer was well received. There are quite a number of questions that are similar. I'll proceed to read them now. How do we get involved in blockchain as female law undergraduates? How can we take effective advantage of blockchain in the legal world? Internships or blockchain companies that take interns? practical aspects of blockchain one can engage in. All these people want to know how they can get involved in the blockchain sphere and opportunities that they're open to.
I think first and foremost, we do run certain internships throughout the year. They can, circulate their CVs via Madam Deborah, even though I don't make decisions in the human capital, but as and when these opportunities emerge, they can count on it that they'll be called upon. Otherwise, they can also look at other companies that are also in the practice of running internships. As I said, I don't make the human capital decisions. However, if their CVs are part of our knowledge, or rather our data bank, then maybe my team can contact them. Otherwise, put yourself out there and get involved.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is from Lillian Olelewe. She said, for someone who is interested in humanitarian law, how can we collaborate with top African businesses and the African Union in fulfilling the SDGs, the social developmental goals, using blockchain?
That's a good question. Remember, when you're speaking about humanitarian law, you are touching on compliance on a number of levels within and beyond human rights. Some of those are your carbon emissions, your environmental impact, your sustainable development goals. So I think first and foremost, ask yourself a question. The team that you are joining, are they already deploying into complying with those SDGs, number one? Number two, are they heading towards blockchain? Because it might not be your call to make whether that company should use blockchain. You can recommend it, but it might not be your final call. So do ask yourself, or do ask them, maybe during the interviewing process, whether they are really adhering to not just the SDGs, there's also the ESGs and other, there's just a whole lot of acronyms there, but do be aware whether this is a forward-thinking company, this is a forward-thinking government that is already leveraging blockchain for social good. Those are the questions. Remember, as they interview you, you are also interviewing them. You may not interview them directly, you can look at what they are known for, and I can only wish you all the best.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. The next question is from Oluwafunke. She said that she didn't get the part where you mentioned 3 T's, something about truth, trust, and traceability. So she needs you to repeat that aspect.
In that regard, if our coffee supply chains are not transparent, and certain smallholder farmers in those coffee value chains are maybe ill-treated, maybe they are not paid an equitable payment, then we need to deploy blockchain to ensure that from source of origin to the final consumer, or from source to shelf, that entire value chain is transparent and is truthful and is ethical, meaning nobody's backdating records or creating ghost farmers or creating those that are involved that shouldn't have been involved, or claiming that some were involved that were not involved. So today's silos are not transparent. Today's silos during sourcing are not ethical quite often. So to have a bulletproof ethical claim, we need to bring that truth at an immutable level, and we need to ensure that transparency is extended and lent to the very weak to the strongest.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a few more questions to go, and then we'll call it a day. The next question is from Ogo Oluwa Osileshi. She said, will smart contracts reduce opportunities for lawyers, seeing as AIs are in place to do their jobs?
Kindly repeat the question. With smart contracts?
She's asking if smart contracts will reduce opportunities for lawyers because of artificial intelligence, replacing lawyers. Yes.
Very good question. Very good question. Yesterday, I was in a meeting. Let me have a look. I was in a meeting with a candidate. Let me actually have a look at his name. One moment. There was a UK meeting I was part of. With interesting enough, it was with DLA Piper. I believe they're the largest law firm in the world. I'm trying to find the name of the person I was in the meeting with. I think it's Sir Kerr. I'm just having a look at his name here. Ah, there we go. So I'm just opening that. I'm going to try and share my screen. Going up. There we go. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Ah, thank you. And as you can see, I was in the meeting with Sir Kerr, who is the leader of the Labour Party in the UK. One of the items that he answered there is, what is a rule of law? What is a rule of law? Because there seems to be certain understanding within the legal fraternity, while there's another understanding within the public. And it's like almost everyone is holding their own version of what truth is. So back in, I think, the 60s, when the machines were being brought into the manufacturing sector, there was an adoption fear. Let's call it an adoption fear. People thought these machines are going to take away our industrial, blue collar jobs. And that's quite understandable. But what I didn't realize is that the country itself was entering the realms of industrialization, where you would have to be upskilled so that you are not just using your hands to maybe, use the blowtorch mechanism or injection molding to create this glass here. You will actually oversee a much bigger productivity because the country itself is entering a prosperity regime. They didn't see the macro picture. So could emerging technologies deprive certain lawyers of jobs? I would say yes and no. Yes, because if you don't adapt, you die. Hopefully not physically. So the members of the legal profession must adapt. I've mentioned being digital first. I've mentioned being acclimatized to the Pan-Africa mechanisms. I've mentioned becoming a lawyer without borders. Don't just attend this event. Become that lawyer who operates, who thinks, who actually practices beyond borders, and who is also quite digitally savvy. So are you going to be increasing your value add so that even with all the robots, with all the machine technology, we still prefer to hire you because you will need to command the machines and tell the machines what to do. You will need to, in a very, family language, you will need to babysit the machines. Can you babysit the machines, or the machines are going to kick you out? I think only you can decide on that. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, sir. For the remaining questions, you've answered a lot of them in one way or another. We're going to take one that says, is there a risk in blockchain, especially public?
I noted, is there a risk in blockchain? And I didn't get the last one. And just to put it out there, I think this will be our last question before the concluding remarks on my side, because I'm going to transition into my next commitment. Just a quick one. Is there a risk in blockchain? I didn't get the last part.
She said, is there a risk in blockchain, especially publicly? That was how the question was couched.
I see. All right. Thank you. So you would remember that Nigeria, as Madam Deborah said, like other countries, their data repositories or their registries are sometimes tampered with. So the tampering and the fraudulent activities, which is not limited to Nigeria, it happens throughout the continent, including in my country. There are those incidents in South Africa as well. There is sometimes an interference in the normal flow of trade with what the documents are or what they purport to be. excuse me. So solving that tamper proofing using blockchain is good and is bulletproof. But without the expertise of the legal industry, blockchain itself could create another set of challenges, or it could arise another set of risks that must be mitigated. And there's one that comes to mind. There's one. Remember the protection to personal information. It has been rolled out as GDPR in Europe. It's been rolled out as POPI in South Africa. I know that Nigeria was quite advanced or already deployed into rolling out protection to personal information as well. I just don't have the acronym or the umbrella naming of the legislation. Some of the letter or spirit of those rollouts of protecting personal data, they insist, the policy framework or legislation insists that that certain data repositories should actually self-terminate or should be destroyed after X period of time. One of those is things like know your customer or KYC. Those of you that are leaning more towards the banking sector or the financial services of practicing your what you call it, your profession, or within commerce, within commercial. So here's a problem. If blockchain records are protected and they never actually become stale and they never disappear, how do you maneuver around those requirements of adhering to the criteria that this data, some of you may remember Mission Impossible movie, this is your mission if you accept it, and this device is going to self-terminate after maybe 60 seconds. Well, that's very dramatized and that's Hollywood, but that's what most of the what do you call it, the different versions of protection to personal information are rolling out there. They're saying, don't just be responsible in keeping and protecting it. Don't just be responsible in transmitting it during trade, and be transparent in reporting who you transmitted it to. But you must also be the custodian who ensures that this body of data should actually be destroyed, maybe after 5 years, so that someone's credit scoring, for one, is not hanging over their head for longer than 5 years. So those are some of the uniqueness or the unique nuances in trade, in legislation, and in technology that could really lead to the arising where the legal profession will need to deploy their best of breed in solutioning problems before they arise, or responding to some of the challenges that could already be playing out in the open domains.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Shadrach. We really appreciate your time. This lecture is nothing short of expectation. It has been so impactful as usual. Thank you, we really appreciate. And we hope for further of your support in appearing in further programs of this firm. We really appreciate you. It is greatly appreciated by the whole of minds, and I know it's the same for the whole of the interns here. Mr. Shadrach is a great leader, a role model. He's a blockchain expert. We have a lot to learn from him, and interacting with people like him will help us to be able to, to form a sort of charting the route for us in the way we can go. We can't just relate with only the legal minds alone, but those in the space that are already practicalizing, interacting with them will help us to channel that route, and we'll be able to be well placed, and of course we won't miss out of the benefits and the potentials that this emerging tech blockchain has to offer. And he's always been supportive in he's one of our pioneer speakers at the beginning of the maiden session of this program. He was one of the speakers, and he greatly supported, and it was highly impactful like this. This is beyond explanation. I lack the words to really use to appreciate you. We're not taking you for granted. We really appreciate you, and please try and connect with him. This is one of the leaders in Africa you should follow. You should see as a role model. Connect with him as you share your lessons, which are great. They are enormous. I'm also learning here too. As you share on LinkedIn and on the various social media platforms, especially on LinkedIn, please don't forget to tag Mr. Shadrach, tag the Hilton Top Solicitors, tag me. Please do not forget to follow great leaders like this. And as you go further, this is a platform to help you develop your career, to help you get a clear-cut direction in your life. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Shadrach. We'll speak again. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Chioma, over to you to just conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shadrach, for this enlightening session. We appreciate you. We do not take this for granted at all. Today was very impactful. It was wonderful. We are grateful. Thank you so much, sir. Have a nice day, sir. We have finally come to an end of the third day of the second edition of the Hilton Top Solicitors Virtual Internship Program. Would like to once again appreciate the managing partner, Mrs. Deborah Ayoni, for this opportunity. Thank you, Madam Deborah. We are grateful. Thank you for providing this platform for us to come together and learn about blockchain and technology. We are grateful. Thank you so much, everyone, for being present here today. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Chioma. Thank you so much. Our great coordinator. Thank you. The Lord bless you. And thank you, everyone. Bye. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shadrach. We really appreciate it. And regards to the family. God bless.
Will do. Thank you so much. To be continued.
All right. Thank you. Bye. Cheers.